Would you please welcome our distinguished commencement speaker, Jennifer Heemstra. I'll just pop this right here.
Trustee Breslin, Associate Provost Chavukula, Dean Forger, Associate Deans Rail and Croth, members of the faculty and staff, Ms. Moriarty, Ms. Taggart, Dr. Taggart I know is here, and Doc, I'm not sure if he's here as well. It's wonderful to see some familiar faces here today. Proud parents, and above all, graduates. Let me start off by saying thank you. Not only has MSU given me an extraordinary honor, but the weeks of anxiety and racking my brain over what to say have given me a new bar to measure stage fright by. Based on my hours of research, I simply have to get through this without making any reference to our current president, global warming, or anything to do with La La Land. I thought the simplest way to appear wise was to plagiarize talking points from my MSU graduation speaker. Unfortunately, 17 years later, I don't remember it. And I couldn't find the video on YouTube. You're probably thinking, and you might be right, that I was worried about an audition. Because 17 years ago, that is what music meant to me. Perfect scales and round tones, an orchestra job or a faculty position, and generally being able to support myself without working at Starbucks. But that's okay, that's a good job too. 17 years later, I can tell you that music is far more formidable in its ability to connect, to unify, and heal. And at least for a pianist, it's right at our fingertips. It was only recently that I discovered the true range of a musician in meaning and impact on people. Let me paint you a picture of a uniquely gratifying moment where I experienced the power of music to influence society. Imagine a 750-seat concert hall, packed, balcony, standing room only, guests in their Sunday best, dressed to impress, a grand piano center stage with chairs perfectly placed for the violinist, violist, and cellist, colored lights dim just so to create a soft glow as the romantic tunes of Brahms float through the hall. Sound like a good gig? Sounds like Carnegie Hall, possibly. What if I told you that this is, in fact, the Hathor Festival, one of 6 concerts my charity puts on that brings healthcare and social services to the most vulnerable people in Indian society. That just hours before the first chord struck, our audience had received free vaccinations, pap tests, and screening for tuberculosis from some of our volunteer doctors. That the hall was in Kaligat, a slum in India, and our 750 guests were women and children who live in extreme poverty in India's red light districts. Many of the women are victims of intergenerational prostitution. Many of the kids orphaned by violence, often domestic. Others have cerebral palsy or physical disabilities. And some are transgender people considered outcasts in Indian society. All sitting as one, transfixed and inspired by a genre of music they had never heard before, Western classical. Joining me on stage were my colleagues musicians from Oberlin, Juilliard, the Cleveland Institute of Music, who had traveled across the world to perform for free. As a bonus to this program was my new friend, Bikram Ghosh, a Grammy-winning tabla player who toured with the late Ravi Shankar. But the real superstars of the day followed our piano quartet. Children of the Red Light District, transgender community, and the Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy all performed. These kids blew everyone away, entertaining each other and us. You could see the energy, the hope flow from these young performers as they danced, sang, twirled on stage, taking their turn to feel special in the spotlight. Behind the scenes was a small brigade of volunteers and donors, from billionaire CEOs of multi-international companies to the inspiring nuns of Mother Teresa's Daughters of Charity. Kolkata has the second largest red light district in Asia, with over 10,000 women trapped in sex slavery. Our goal is to heal their mind, body, and soul through music. In a country still plagued by a caste system, watching the wealthy work hard to motivate and educate the poor made me realize one of the powers of music is to inspire and to make musicians leaders in changing the world. So you could say, I discovered the power and meaning of music in parasite prevention for prostitutes, truly. Okay, so I'm not advocating that you all hop on a flight to Calcutta right now. That was my journey. But the last 17 years have renewed my faith in music and given me fresh perspective. And if you permit me, I'd like to offer a few pieces of advice. Go ahead, take a risk. As you're sitting here today, you might have a 5, 10, 15 plan in mind. These plans may involve teaching music, performing in an orchestra, a solo career, or a mix of the above. Parents, cover your ears. I'm here to tell you, graduates, that when an opportunity comes up that requires throwing that entire plan out of the window, take it. 7 years ago, I was comfortable in Cleveland with plenty of work to pay my bills, but something was missing. I felt stagnant, burned out, and needed a break from music. I always had a dream to live and work in Rome, and decided the time was right. A lot of my friends questioned my judgment, but I realized I would rather take a risk, move to Italy, and discover it wasn't for me than to sit in my apartment in the cold and continue to playing the same old saxophone and trombone repertoire, wondering, what if? Sorry, Dean. So I quit all my jobs, sold my car, packed up my apartment, and moved to Rome. Living in Rome forced me to start anew in another culture and language. I learned how hard it is to live as an immigrant, yes, even in Italy. I battled the visa process and negotiating rents in Italiano. I also fought off a few Romeos with amorous intent. And I may not have become the best English teacher, but I learned resilience, street smarts, and an openness to other cultures. Lessons I would need later in life. My next piece of advice is to develop relationships, not just Facebook friends, and don't be shy to use them. After 2 years in Rome, I wanted to re-enter the world of music. I researched biographies of faculty at local schools and universities, and I found Roy Zimmerman, a graduate of MSU School of Music, who happened to be the music director at the American Overseas School of Rome. I called him up. I said, hey, I'm a Spartan. He hollered, go green. And I responded, go white. And we met that afternoon. By the time I left his rehearsal room, I had a full-time music job in Italy. Finalmente. Bear in mind, I was not an education major and was out of my comfort zone teaching 4th and 5th grade music, recorder class, and high school choir. My MSU groomed me to be a concert pianist, but it also gave me a priceless resource, my classmates. My MSU colleagues, those from music ed, marching band, and men's glee, emailed me lesson plans, recordings, sheet music, everything I needed to succeed. I had kept in touch with them over the few years, and they came through. Your MSU degree is your ticket to a global network of musicians. Value the relationships you've made here, and make sure to answer the call of a panicked pianist looking for the Hindemith Clarinet Sonata. So take a risk, adapt, I just said it, sorry. Take a risk, develop relationships, and my third piece of advice is to adapt. You received excellent training here at MSU. Right now, you may think, for a successful concert, you require a first-class venue, a tuned Steinway grand, perfect acoustics, and a well-rehearsed ensemble. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's ideal. But I have found incredible gratification in music when none of those were present. After 3.5 years in Rome, I got married and moved to Calcutta, India. What a culture shock. In a city of 15 million people, I found one piano tuner, one Western classical music school, and one piano rental company. and with almost metronomic precision, the 4.5-month monsoon, which wreaks havoc on all instruments. That is when I realized I need to adapt to my surroundings and the resources available. It is not always going to be a perfect recital hall or a perfect setting. At one of my concerts, I was performing Puccini when a herd of water buffalo started wandering into the back row, which didn't even bother the children sitting on the tarp. At another event, an opera singer belted out Ave Maria so passionately as the rock star lighting and effects and haze started coming out of the theater for thousands. I have actually had a photographer climb on stage and pop his head in between me and the page turner just to get a good snap. These moments are stressful, but we reach the most grateful audiences and have fun. The greatest truth I knew, forgot for a spell, and then relearned in a deeper and more meaningful way is that music is transformative. It heals, brings hope, inspires, helps us cope, and makes us see the world with fresh eyes. The world is ahead of you, and it is a place of opportunity. Take a quiet moment, once all the graduation festivities have receded, and remember to ask yourselves, what is success for me? The best answer is a personal one, informed and inspired by your own passion. It might come to you right then in a moment of Zen-like insight, or it might take 10 or 17 years for the answer to come into force. But stick with that question like a mantra, and you'll reach your goal. My truth is that success comes in many forms. A technically perfect performance is something awesome, and we all strive for it. But realizing that our ability to communicate, reflect the beauty of the world through music, and underscore our shared humanity is what truly makes me feel successful. Graduates, you have an exceptional talent, and you have an amazing world in front of you. Go out and grab it. Thank you.